Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about good debt, bad debt, and interest rates. So all that stuff. As an investor, as a student loan borrower, as a mortgage borrower, we're going to talk about all of that. So if you have anything that you are most interested in hearing about or something that you've always wanted the answer to, make sure that you hit the timestamps. I'm going to put some timestamps so that you guys don't have to necessarily listen to all of these things, because some of these things you probably already know. But anyways, these notes are sporadic, so that's why the timestamps are going to be absolutely essential. So you can see what's going on, skim through, take what you want, skip what you don't want. Anyways, let's get right into the video. Number one thing that we're going to go over is, what is good debt? So good debt, we're going to go ahead and define that as debt that would decrease your potential cash flow if you were to pay it off early. So debt that would decrease your potential cash flow if you were to pay it off early. That could be, for example, let's say that this is way back in the 1800s and I'm going to buy a house for $1,000 and I'm paying a 7% interest rate on that. So I'm paying basically, what's that, $70? Did I do that math right? Yeah, let's say I'm paying $70 to basically hold that loan. But I'm able to basically make, let's just say, 15% return. Let's say that I'm making $150 on top of my principal payments so that I can rent the house out. At that point, if I'm making $150 and I'm paying $70 to do it, I'm essentially taking those $70 in interest and I'm turning them into $80 in profit. The next thing that we're going to talk about is ROIC versus interest rate. So ROIC versus interest rate, the reason why that is important is because when we look at bonds versus stocks, so the interest rate is going to be what affects bonds. I'm dropping a video about bonds and how interest rates affect bond prices, but interest rates basically determine how much money you're going to make on issuing a loan. ROIC, or return on invested capital, based upon the amount of capital that you put into a business, how much money are you getting back out? So one thing that is at play that people don't necessarily see when they're new to the markets is ROIC versus interest rates. And that is, can I get a better return on invested capital by putting my money in a business? Or can I get a better return on my money by getting an interest rate on a loan to a business? So there's a lot of different rights that you have when you invest in a business, in the common stocks, preferred stocks, or in their bonds. So that is a topic for another video. Anyways, let's get into the next topic, bad debt. So what is a bad debt? A bad debt is something that would increase your potential cash flow if you were to pay it off early. So something that's on unproductive assets, such as like a TV, degrees, car loan, something that is not producing you money. If you have a loan against that thing, it would behoove you to pay that thing off early because it's not producing you excess cash to the point of paying that loan for you, essentially. So that would be a bad debt. Some people, like my man Dave Ramsey, would say that all debt is bad debt. And that is one way to go about things. You don't necessarily have to use leverage. You don't necessarily have to use debt to be a great investor. You can still make plenty of return without using other people's money or without using borrowed money. But it is one way to be. So moving on to the next thing, what is an interest rate? So we went over this a little bit earlier, but an interest rate is the amount of money that you are charged to hold a loan. So let's say you take out a $100,000 loan at a 4% APR. You are charged $4,000 per year to hold this loan. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but if you were just paying interest only, you would be paying $4,000 per year. Next thing is, what is the Fed funds rate and how does it affect the economy? So basically what the Fed funds rate is the overnight lending that banks do. So without getting too far in the weeds, the overnight lending is essentially it's what banks pay each other to loan on their reserves. So banks only have to hold a fraction of your money as reserves, or like cash reserves in their vault. So at any one given time, because of the fractional reserve banking system, they could be required to hold 10%, they could be required to hold 3%, or they could be required to hold close to 0% as they are right now. So anybody who's holding their money in a bank, your money's not actually there right now. So no need to freak out, guys. Everything is just fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be all good. Yeah, anyways, I hope you guys could sense the sarcasm there. Your money's not there right now, so everything's okay though. So to give you guys a formal definition, this is my Wikipedia definition of the Fed funds rate. This is that right here. So in the United States, the federal funds rate is the interest rate at which depository institutions lend reserve balances to each other. Depository institutions overnight on an uncollateralized basis. So essentially what that means is I'm Bank of America. I lend money to Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo wants more money than I have, so I take out a loan from another bank. The interest rate that they're going to charge me has to do with the federal funds rate. So that's different than the discount rate, which is a little bit above the Fed funds rate, and that's actually set by the Fed, the lender of last resort. So when you actually, as a bank, run out of money and you don't go get it from another bank, which is typically cheaper, and you end up getting it from the Federal Reserve, this is typically when the entire banking system is collapsing, like back in 2008. Why is it collapsing? Probably because they gave out bad loans, but we're not going to get all political on here. But anyways, the discount rate is what the Federal Reserve charges for those extra reserves, basically to print money, increase the money supply. The current Federal Reserve funds rate is at about 0.25, so it's basically zero. If you take into account inflation, which the dollar index just went down by 7% in the past 3 months, that 0.25 is really negative 6.75. So not a good time to be a lender, but it is a great time to take out debt. And yeah, so I mean, that's a great time for, it's a great time for if you want to take out like real estate debt or something. Basically what the government is doing is they are creating an environment that makes it easier for them to pay off their loans. So they're making an environment that makes it easier to pay off loans. You might as well take out some loans. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to encourage spending, but if you are smart, you will just use that to your advantage, buy assets, leverage them slightly, not too much, and you'll get the government to essentially pay for you, get taxpayers to basically indirectly pay for your investments. So that's how you win at the money game. But moving on to the next one, this is a little rule of thumb that I found, and I think that you guys will find it interesting just to use as a picture of where the stock market is right now. Why is it so high right now? And that's because the interest rates are so low. So a rule of thumb is 1 divided by the current PE of the stock market, an index, say like the S&P 500, equals expected rate of return. So I'm going to give you guys the example of right now, as of August 9th, 2020, the stock market PE of the S&P 500 is 28.81, which is super high. So 1 divided by 28.81 is 3.47%. So as of August 9th, you can expect, based on historically speaking, a 3.47% return from the current levels. If you can only get 0.8%, getting your high interest savings account, or you can get potentially a 3.47% return in the stock market, you're still looking at stocks like, okay, they're not that much cheaper than, just parking some cash, and the dollar is also going down in value. Stocks don't look so bad here, but it's a dicey situation. You're basically, through the raising of interest rates, you're essentially creating a low return environment. So that's what they mean when they're saying a low return environment, is that since interest rates are so low, you get this diminishing rate of return, you get this diminishing returns. And now we're at the point where there's not really too many good options out there. A good thing to look at in your personal finances is, if I have debt, let's say I have student debt or I have car debt, a good thing to look at is your interest rates. Let's say you have an 8% interest rate on your car. Let's say that based on the equation that we just did, the stock market is looking to give you a 3.5% return. let's say that that you have some other loan that's 5%, the best thing for you to do, mathematically speaking, would be to pay down that car. Now, obviously, there's some more emotional things that play into this, and you'll have to make your decisions for yourself, but it is good to know that math. So the last things I want to get into are the APR versus APY, because that's something that is very confusing to a lot of people. And that's going to help people as far as like savings accounts. One little gem I want to drop for people real quick is that a great website to go to it's called Bankrate. You can go see which savings account have the highest interest rates. You can see basically where you're going to get the best return on your money for savings accounts. The annual percentage yield is the real rate of return earned on savings, deposits, or investments, taking into account the effect of compounding interest. So basically the difference between APR and APY is the actual rate of return that will be earned in 1 year of interest that is compounded. So APY takes into account compounding. APR is the annual rate charged for borrowing through an investment. So essentially APR, you are taking out the loan, that's how much you are paying, and it's not going to take into account compounding interest because you are paying that amount, so it's actually diminishing the amount of interest that you're paying over time, versus APY, you are the investor, you are the saver, and it's taking into account compounding interest. So anyways, hopefully this illuminated some stuff for you guys. Yeah, I hope this helps you guys out, and if you guys have some time, pop over to my Facebook account. I'm trying to start a good community of people over there so that we can build some wealth over there. We can send each other offers, anything that you guys see out there, any opportunities to advance ourselves financially or in any other way. You know, we're just trying to have a fulfilling life. And yeah, if you guys want to join that, there's a link down to that in the description. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope this helps you in your investing. So peace.